I believe that the exchange is wrong, not because I've read the documentation. It's just what I hear from people that have come forward, our county commissioners and this gentleman. I'm prepared to make a motion that we react to the document, and that because there's nothing in the bullet points here that really says anything other than we think it's the wrong thing to do at this time. So my motion would be to get our, as Walter says, oar in the water, support the county in their questioning of the environmental impact statement, and to approve the bullet points as listed in this memo on March 7th from Mayor Cheney.
I'll second that.
We have Tim's motion and Tom's second. Discussion of that topic before voting. Walter?
Tim, if you'd stopped about two-thirds of the way through that, I could support it. But I don't know enough to vote yes on the bullet points. I'm just sorry. Apologies. My apologies.
Well, they really don't say anything.
I'm not going to tell the mayor what she wrote doesn't say anything.
Well, read them.
Just to be clear, this, we need in order to address specific issues of concern. I craft my memos to generate, hopefully, some buy-in from the City Council, recognizing that they perhaps are not so pointed as to say, this is the hard stand on this thing.
I support them.
Yes, indeed. To say that we can all get around this because these are the points of concern. We might just have questions about it, but at least we call them by name.
That's my point exactly.
Yeah, thank you. And that was my intent, Walter.
And I'm not saying they're wrong. I just don't know.
Okay. Sue?
I actually like the first paragraph from the retired Forest Service employees memo to the Board of County Commissioners, where it says many in Latah County are very concerned that the proposed land exchange is not in the long-term best interest of the public, and have expressed this through a list of specific issues, and that the draft Upper Lochsaw Land Exchange environmental impact statement does not, and we could not, in our opinion, identify and address most of the significant public issues, nor does it include discussion and or analyses consistent with the scope of the project.
So are you proposing that be included in the letter?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually prefer that because, like Walter, I don't know as much about it to be more specific, except the fact that I personally would probably send a letter saying what it says on the map, that I don't like the fact that all roads and trails within exchange parcels that are not identified as being reserved will be removed from the National Forest Transportation System. I don't like that at all. But so I think addressing the root problem is that it's not in the long-term best interest of the public, period. And that the statement that the DIEIS does not identify and address most of the issues and does not include discussion or analysis, I think that covers it.
So my experience with environmental impact statements is limited, but I've been involved with some of that before, and I think the specifics, just saying we don't like it or we don't think it's adequate and not calling it by point, is something that Mr. Ballard addressed and that we have heard in other settings as well. Stephanie, for your reference, I don't know if you've seen a copy of it. Sue was referring to a letter dated February 15th, 2011 from the retired Forest Service employees addressed to the Board of County Commissioners and Latah County Planning and Zoning Commission, and I have a copy of that for you here. Walter?
Well, if I understood Mr. Ballard's comment, this proposal has moved from, I'm like Tim, I'm a little confused on the terminology, but from two other ranger districts to this one because it wasn't in the public interest, not because
Right.
the Ts on page 4 weren't crossed correctly.
Period, not.
I keep hearing little echoes of Highway 95 from Thorn Creek to Moscow and an EIS. And I don't want to go there. If, I'm more in favor of the general statement or mirroring, as the city attorney suggested we could do, not recommending, but said we could, copy what the county does. I would be more willing to ride their pony, I think. I'm going to vote no if it includes the specific things. Thank you.
Tom?
I actually wanted to see us add one other thing, which we kind of alluded to in the conversation here tonight, which is the education potential of the land. And it's not just the University of Idaho, but I'm personally involved in environmental education, and I know that federal lands in the region and the accessibility of those federal lands as close as possible to schools in this area is really critical. And in these times of budget cutting among school districts where they don't have access to transportation dollars any longer, it's more and more difficult for kids to get outside and get into the woods, and I'd rather not see those options made even smaller by this land exchange. So I'm particularly interested in seeing if we could address that issue within.
Are you
the
proposing
statement.
that as an amendment to Tim's motion?
I would, if I could find a second.
If you could find a second, to include the educational component.
The educational
That's one of the
component.
things I neglected
Right.
to mention, and I did review the draft EIS online, and I didn't see mention. It may be buried in there in the volumes, but I looked and I didn't see it mentioned, thus I neglected to mention it in my memo.
Well, I think it's my feeling is that it isn't being addressed enough in the draft EIS, that it should be addressed as an impact issue. And I would like to see us point that out in the letter. So that's my hope.
How would you word that, Tom?
I guess it would be addressing the inadequacy of taking into account the cost of to the education community of the loss of that land, accessibility of that land.
It's acceptable to me.
So you second his amendment? He's amending the
You can
original
amend my motion, and I'll accept the amended motion.
Okay.
Friendly.
Perhaps that's, yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Second my
Okay,
first.
so the motion
He
has
made the
amended.
motion.
Can we do that, Randy? I was going to just have them vote on the amendment, but the motion as amended, they can adopt that whole thing and vote on the whole package?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
But I guess at some point I'm going to ask this question, so I might as well ask it now.
Please.
I think that staff at least is going to need clarification because, for example, Sue said she'd like to see something added, but I didn't hear that as part of the motion. Somebody talked about substituting Mr. Ballard's paragraph for paragraph number 1. Tim said something about improving the bullet points. What I would like to see for staff at the end of this discussion, when you finally come up with a motion and you vote for it, is to tell us exactly what you want so that we can give you the product that you're expecting following your discussion. And I think it's based upon what I've heard and Stephanie's notes, vague.
Okay. So,
So-
Tim, would you like to clarify your motion as far as adopting whatever the language was that Sue proposed from this?
Madam
I can't
Madam Mayor-
find that.
Madam Mayor,
Susan
I
from-
was proposing this as an alternate, not
This
as an
is-
alternate
this was
motion, not,
Stephanie.
not,
Addition.
not an addition.
I heard you, Sue, and
It's an
so to,
So,
for Mayor Cheney, I moved that we
Well, Stephanie, tell us what you have in terms of the motion Tim made at first.
That you react to the document and support the county in questioning the EIS and to approve the bullet points outlined in the memo from Mayor Cheney.
That is my motion.
And then it was amended by Tom, and that was accepted by Tim to add the language about,
Well, Tim kind of just seconded that, but you didn't actually vote on it.
we didn't vote on it. And that's what I was asking Randy, if they need to vote on.
I understood that the maker of the motion and the second agreed with
Yes.
the amendment, which I believe is fine. If everybody
Okay.
sort of agrees, they don't forget to
So
vote.
now the motion as amended includes the language about the education. Yes, Randy.
Perhaps I just am having a hard time understanding this. When someone makes a motion to react to the document, what is meant? And when someone makes a motion to support questioning the EIS, what is meant?
Okay.
Because we're going to have to take those intentions and understand how to draft a document, or maybe react doesn't mean that, or are you adopting the mayor's memo? I'm just trying, it doesn't have to be done right now, but when we leave this meeting, staff is going to have to do something. And so I want it to be clear enough for staff, if that's me or Stephanie or Gary, that we'll give you a product that you want.
Tim, would you like to elaborate or clarify?
In general, the motion from the city would suggest that the land exchange not go through as documented in the, I think it's called an EIS, the environmental impact statement that the Forest Service is putting forth. That we do not support it, the exchange as written.
That's different.
Madam Mayor,
Dan?
just, I'm not saying Tim's wrong in what he said or what you wrote is wrong, but instead of reinventing the wheel, I think that's why it would be, and not necessarily saying that just because it's easy, it's the right way, but right now it feels like the right way to mirror what the county says. We can add in Tom's educational component. I think that's a good addition. But, if we can see what they've got and just add that portion into it, I think that would be the cleanest and easiest way for us to move forward with this. I mean, obviously, I think that we've got a consensus that, we want to say something. And I think that's the quickest way to move forward with this without trying to, like Walter, I tried to stay as blissfully unaware of this as possible. I was opposed to it from the beginning because, I think Mr. Ballard's done a good job of staying ahead of this, but if we're going to react to this, I think that we need to just mirror what the county's saying. That way we're all on the same page. And we're not wasting not that it's a waste of time, but that you've wasted your time, but we're not having to spend a lot of time trying to edit this before Wednesday.
However, the dilemma is we don't have a copy of what the county has said or might say or hasn't said. And we do have a copy of this before us, and we have a reference here if you'd like to ask some questions about somebody who has followed it, obviously, very closely. Whether you choose to agree or disagree, at least we do have some reference materials that is, I don't think anybody up here is inclined to vote for something they haven't seen. I've heard that round and round, and we haven't seen the county's letter, and we may not have it. We're here tonight when you can vote. We won't be here as a body tomorrow unless we call a special meeting or something like that. Let's see, I said, Tom, you had your hand up.
I'm hearing what Randy was asking, and I'm wondering if maybe what he's asking us to do is direct somebody to compose the letter based on something to move it forward. And would you like us to say we're asking the mayor to compose a letter that uses the memo and the county's letter as the basis for the letter? Is that what, I mean, I'm asking if
I'm
you're
not a-
asking for
yeah,
that.
I'm not- I'm
Or you're,
I'm not asking for that. My problem is that there is no comment from the county.
I understand that, but. we
And
don't
so
have-
what I'm just trying to get is enough direction after we're done to know what it is that we're doing. So if, and I'm having a hard time understanding how you vote on something that doesn't exist, but that's your job. We have some references that are concrete, and I'll do whatever the council wants to do. I just want to know what that is. And so I'm not suggesting it's done in one way or another. I just need to know what it is that I'm trying to just follow your discussion.
Right, and as follow-up to Tom, if the council chooses and gives, the general concepts and the points, I'm happy to craft something and run it by the whole of the council and just kind of get some okay on that. And hopefully by tomorrow, we will have seen the county's letter, but we can't presume that at all. So, I mean,
You could do that with the county's letter, though,
If we,
Madam Mayor.
Tim?
In all due respect, I call for the question.
Second.
Okay, you moved the previous question.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we vote on
Vote
this
on the
matter.
motion. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that'll take a two-thirds majority to do that, so we'll vote on your motion first, calling the
To
question.
call for the
Or call
question,
the
I vote aye.
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 Okay, so we have a motion and a second, motion from Tim and a second from Tom to make a statement on behalf of the city in opposition to the draft environmental impact statement pursuant to the proposed Lochsa land exchange, that we respond to the county's, no? No, okay. So that we take the bullet points I made plus the language about the loss of educational asset, and we incorporate that in a letter to establish the city's standing in this matter. Is that close?
Yes, ma'am.
Tom, is that close? Okay. Everybody know what we're voting on?
That's not what I heard Tim say in his first motion, that he opposed the land exchange, not the draft environmental impact statement. That's what I heard him say. That may not have been what he meant, but that's what I heard him say.
Okay.
Ask the clerk, please.
Okay. Okay.
Ask the clerk, please.
In his original motion, he mentioned specifically the environmental impact statement, but then when he went back to talk about it, he talked directly about about the city not supporting the land exchange. But that wasn't what he said in his original motion. It was about the environmental impact statement.
But not the draft environmental impact statement.
That's the only one that
only
exists.
Only one.
Only one.
India was lost for a comma to the British.
Well, I may have not said it, you were on top of it, but what I meant was I'm opposing the land exchange.
Which is what I said, he said.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and we're voting on, I mean, we had
So is that your understanding as well, Tom, of the motion? As the seconder? Opposing the draft EIS and the land exchange, it sounds like.
well, that's great, but I thought that what we were doing was voting to react to the draft environmental impact statement and get a letter in.
Okay?
So
Aren't they
that's-
the same?
No.
No.
Ah,
No.
Well, vote my motion down then.
Well, that
move on.
was, no, so your motion
No,
is
I'm-
on the
I'm
draft
clear on that.
EIS. We got
Yeah,
that
I'm
part.
clear
That's
on
what's
that.
on, that's what's on paper.
Getting the letter
is the
in.
opposition to
this
the draft EIS. And then we have the second. And we're ready to vote. We
But
have,
we called the
unanimous-
question, so.
and we have the unanimous sort. No, we just need clarification of what the motion was. We've got it, okay? Ready?
The maker doesn't even
Tim,
know.
Tim will
Well, I
start with
vote
you.
aye.
No.
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 Okay, the
That's
motion
no.
fails. Let's come back to something else.
All right.
Walter?
Or you can.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody but Tim correct me if I'm wrong. Discussion of the draft EIS and its correctness is not the same as being for or against the land exchange. You may have opinions on both, but they are two different. One's a written document, the other one is a proposal that's to be decided. So they're two different things. If you want to, if somebody wants to make a motion to do one or the other, or both, then they need to do so. But to make a motion about one and later during discussion roll in the other one is confusing and might have helped this fail. I don't know that, but anyway, just my point that, and correct, like I say, correct me if I'm wrong. They're two different things.
Right, just to correct you then, he did
Please.
clarify that he was only addressing the draft EIS in that motion. He had already extracted
The
that.
votes-
It was
the-
not part
the
of the
votes-
motion.
The vote's been taken, so it failed.
Yes, but it wasn't part of the land exchange for or against was not part of the motion. Walter, please carry on. You had more?
Oh,
I'm finished.
Sue?
okay. Well, I'd like to take another stab at this.
Was my hope.
The county, as I spoke to the commissioners, the county, I was told that the county wasn't going to take a position on the land exchange, but on the draft environmental impact statement at this time, but they had a lot of questions that were not answered because the county, at least what Mr. Stroshine said to me, that was that he did not have enough information. There were a lot of questions that weren't answered to even make an opinion about about the issue, because the draft EIS was incomplete and didn't answer a lot of issues and problems. Our analysis or definitions in a lot of ways, it was not satisfactory. So that's why I liked this first paragraph that from the retired Forest Service employees memo to the Board of County Commissioners, that many of us in Latah County, and the city we are residents of the county, are very concerned that the proposed land exchange is not in the long-term best interest of the public. This draft continued on to, this letter continued on to say, and have expressed this through a long list of specific issues. I could leave that part out and just say that because the draft, and then it says the draft EIS does not identify and address many significant public issues, and we can refer to many of the public issues that were brought up in this memo. And that way we're saying we're concerned that the land exchange is not in the long-term best interest of the public, and the draft EIS is not complete. And if they want specifics, the specifics we can ask them to address the specific concerns as brought up by the retired Forest Service employees. And the reason I would refer to them is because they're the boots on the ground, and they have studied this more than any of us. So where I wouldn't go chapter and verse in buying every argument they make, I would say if there's a lot of questions that have not been addressed in the draft environmental impact statement, they should be to the satisfaction of everybody.
And you're willing to enumerate those?
I would
on
refer.
that
I would
document?
refer
Okay.
to the, and you could attach the letter. You could attach the memo to the letter as an addendum.
Okay, is that a
It's
motion?
Was there a motion in there?
Yes, the motion was that many in Latah County are very concerned that the proposed land exchange is not in the long-term best interest of the public. The draft Upper Lochsaw Land Exchange Environmental Impact Statement does not, in our opinion, identify and address most of these significant public issues, nor does it include discussion and/or analyses consistent with the scope of the project. And we would refer to, and that's the motion. but referring to the questions raised by the retired Forest Service employees. That gives
In this memo.
You know,
Yeah, in
is
their
anybody
memo.
more familiar with NEPA than I am on that? Whether you can take your opinion and refer to something else? I mean, I thought you had to say it in your document.
I don't know, but if you adopted those things that are in another document as your own and attached it as an exhibit, I would assume that they would accept that as the opinion of the commenter.
Would you like to do that, Sue?
Yes.
Adopt the document as our own.
Is that part of your motion? Mm-hmm. I would second that.
Okay, Sue's motion, Walter's second.
I
Dan?
have a question.
Yes.
We're not only, your motion not only denotes whatever in the EIS that letter is stating against, that we have copies of, but you're also opposing the land exchange in your motion.
That it's not in the public interest, yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion
On the
before
grounds that
voting?
it's not in the public interest.
Right,
That's specific.
That is specific.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, we'll start the roll call vote with you, Walter.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you had asked for discussion.
I did. Did you have some discussion?
May I please?
All right.
In this memo that I don't have with me, but in looking at it, it does, I will say, it does have some general points about, such as the DIS does not disclose the criteria the agency used to select the public and private parcels. That's the type of comment that I can accept being put in what's being proposed that we do. It says the DIS lacks site-specific information and analysis. So these are general enough that I'm comfortable with them, and that is my comment.
Okay, ready to vote? Walter?
Yes, ma'am. Aye.
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 That motion carries, and so the letter drafted, that one dated February 15th, is thereby adopted as the city's own, and the city's opening paragraph is as Sue read it.